Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes, and I'm here to talk to you about Vedic astrology, how it affects you personally, how it affects the world, and also to give you a preview of upcoming world events based on the planetary placements and also your individual charts. You can contact me for readings or for study at 508-525-0001. Or you can email me at garygomesg, that's the letter G, at gmail.com. Okay, so 508-525-0001 or garygomesg at gmail.com. And actually, we've had some very important events, which sort of like sandwiched between two important events. One is the entry of the sun into the sign Aries, which happened yesterday, and the second is the eclipse, the first solar eclipse, excuse me, of 2023, which will happen on between April 19th and April 20th this coming week. And I want to share the charts with you also. If you're interested in what I'm doing, if you're interested in studying with me, I have a school. If you're interested in getting a reading, please don't hesitate to contact me. If you would like to be on the show as an astrologer yourself, you're more than welcome to, or else if you are interested in a related discipline, you're more than welcome to contact me, and we'll discuss what you want to talk about, and we'll figure out whether or not it's a good fit. And so without further ado, let's look at the chart. That's what I like to do every week. So we'll look first of all at the solar New Year chart. We'll look at the eclipse chart, and we'll also look at today's chart. And that's a lot to kind of squeeze in, but we'll do it. And so let me do this. Let's try this first of all, see if it works. It might be working, but what I'm going to do is, I always like to do this a couple of times just to make sure it's working. At least a couple of times. And 3 times for luck. Okay? So let's do one more. And stop the share. Do one more, and hopefully that'll do it. All right. So this is the New Year chart. This is the chart for yesterday. So we have, so this is actually an interesting chart. We have Jupiter's in the first house, so that creates what they call a Hamsa Yoga for the year. So that's actually a good thing. We'll be learning a lot. We'll be studying a lot. We'll be seeing a lot of focus on rulership, because the sun is exalted in this sign, and it's in the same sign with Rahu and Mercury. So we'll be seeing a lot of press. We'll be seeing Saturn also aspects Aries, you can see right here. And what that tends to do, and I'm just going to add one more element, or 2 more elements, and these are the most important elements in the chart, actually. So we have Mars over here in Gemini, and Mercury over here in Aries. That indicates a combination for lying or misrepresentation, for power. The sun is in the same sign with Rahu. That indicates, to me, a lot of overreach on the part of government. Saturn is aspecting the sun. We're going to see a lot of resistance from the poor or from the downtrodden in terms of trying to control the government or trying to control leaders. It doesn't necessarily have to be the government, just control leaders. And with the Jupiter in the first house and Venus in the third house, there'll be a lot of focus on fairness and accuracy and telling the truth. So one of the things I actually kind of like about Rahu as an entity in a chart is this is one of the entities responsible for eclipsing the sun and the moon. What that means in plain English is the light from the sun gets distorted when Rahu or Ketu are with it. Ketu completely blocks out the sun. It causes solar eclipses. That's what we're going to see on the 19th and the 20th, and we'll go to that chart in a few minutes. In terms of, and I'll synthesize all these charts when I talk about the individual signs and the world, because these aren't all that far apart. And the Sun Rahu conjunction over here tends to indicate, to me at least, and I'm seeing it already happening, is the governments are going to act very rapidly, very quickly to sort of crush the opposition or to silence the opposition. Now, depending on your perspective, that can be a good thing or a bad thing. The other thing we're seeing right now is the media is sort of, or the larger media, the ones that make a lot of money, or the ones that have a lot of interest in getting ratings and making money, and that's most media, to be honest with you. Those are going to be working with the government more so than against it, at least for the next year or so. So next year, Rahu will be in this sign. So that won't be the case next year. But you will see a lot of sudden activities, like what happened in France recently regarding some Macron achieved his last step in getting his pension or in raising the retirement age. There was actually a really horrible attack just yesterday on in Myanmar about in terms of it was an attack on civilians by the current government in Myanmar, or as it used to be called, Burma. And also, at least in the chart, we had that the secrets case that some of you may be aware of, the young man who actually lives only about 20 miles away from where I live. I had nothing to do with it. But the man he lives about 20 miles away from where I live, same county, Massachusetts. Mr. Texera, or I think he was an officer in the Air National Guard. But he was only 21 years old. And a lot of the information has been online since around January. And one of the things I found interesting about the coverage is everybody's now really curious as to what's on the actual documents that were leaked. They're more curious as to how the government can stop these documents from leaking. So I find it interesting, and I just want to make a cautionary note. Depending on which side you come down on, you may think that's the most important thing. But you have to also be aware that there are some similar planetary configurations in line when we got into the Iraq War. There are some similar planetary configurations around when the Vietnam War was initiated. So I'm just a little bit worried that um, there that we're being so the fellow definitely committed an act against the government. He'll definitely he'll definitely get in trouble for that. But I'm also concerned that we're not looking at the whole picture. There's more to the story than just that. And more to the story than just that isn't what's being spoken about. It's more like, well, how can we, the New York Times released the location where the fellow lived before the Pentagon did. So that's a little bit concerning to me as an individual. I mean, I'm not saying the New York Times were, but again, it's a ratings play. It's something they're anxious to get out there. They're anxious to, but I've seen the United States too many times be very anxious to get involved in foreign conflicts that really haven't done us or the world any real good. So depending on how you feel about those things, you may say, well, no, those things didn't do the world a lot of good. But I think I get a little concerned about those things. Finally, getting away from the politics of the situation, politics with a small p of the situation. And that means I'm not talking about parties, okay? The other thing is that this Jupiter-Venus surround of the sun will actually enable the government to do more things, but it'll also keep the government honest. At least from this chart, I said this before, you're going to see a lot more leaks over the next year or so. A lot more leaks, a lot more scandals connected with experts, with people in power, with teachers, with people who control resources. It'll be fascinating. And these events are actually good. Rahu's in conjunction with the Lord of the fourth house, and it's going to affect the Lord of the second and the ninth because it indirectly affects Mars. And the government will be in for a struggle this year. Sixth house Lord is in the second house. So we have to be very, very careful. And again, the Mars-Mercury conjunctions, along with Rahu, are essentially what I would call lying in panic configurations. So I think one of the things that I'd encourage people to do is to think very critically about what you hear on the news, and think very critically about what you hear, not only from the government, but from those opposing the government. Okay, because this year, everybody's going to have an agenda. Okay, that's not unusual. That's not bizarre. That's life. But it'll be very, very obvious, and you're going to see a lot of people who are like very highly respected sort of get in a lot of trouble this year. The earliest cases, so we're seeing. So I'm not going to talk about the Trump thing. That's going to be an ongoing thing. That's going to be his. He's had a miserable month because of the Mercury Rahu conjunction. He's in a Mercury major planetary period or major planetary subperiod, excuse me. But you'll also see some problems happening with the president because of the Sun Rahu conjunction. There will be scandal connected with the president. And also, so these are like I said, all leaders. Scandals connected with pretty much almost every world leader right now. And again, over the next year, a lot of changes in governments or a lot of threats to governments. It will depend on the country's individual chart and also some possible problems with international finance because Saturn's in the 12th house. Saturn's aspecting the house of money in the chart. And the moon is also, and even some domestic violence around, we're talking around June to July. So domestic violence in a lot of different countries. I think the worst is really yet to come because the situation we're in right now, there's a lot of so with K2 in the eighth house, there are a lot of secret deals being made and deals being made to undercut people, undercut the citizenry. And also, we're not going to really quite get over supply problems for a little while. But that Mars moon is a little bit concerning, even though Mars is in third house. It's approaching its fallen sign, which is not good. All right, so let's go over to Venus is fine for a while until around June when it goes retrograde, and that will cause some transportation issues and also some problems with communications, the arts, and also, I would say, weather problems. So like raining and flooding. We have had a volcano out of Russia recently. So that's the Mars in Gemini affecting the moon and also Saturn aspecting this. And it's also, and K2 is in the eighth house. It's smoky. K2 is a smoky planet. So that'll do that. So let's leap ahead to the eclipse. I'm going to do another short broadcast on the eclipse probably Monday. But let's go ahead to that. It's the solar eclipse chart. All right. So this is the this is very little different from the other chart we just looked at. The only real difference is the moon is in Aries, where it's in the same sign. So this will give us some potential for healing. The lunar eclipse happens in Ashvini Nakshatra. This will give kind of an obsession with youth and distrust of government. As a matter of fact, rather rapid distrust of government, and also a rather rapid distrust of the other side. So this will be kind of a tender time over the next 6 months, really until around, I would say easily until around October, November, when the next eclipse occurs. And the next eclipse will actually move out of the Libra Aries axis, move out of government and commerce, and then move into the areas of spirituality, foreign trade, and also healthcare. So healthcare and also critical assessment. So you're going to see a lot of inquiries going on after November of this year. A lot of critical inquiries and investigations, even more so than right now. So this will be interesting to find out what's going to happen next year. But I don't think you're going to see another healthcare crisis like we did with COVID. But you'll certainly see a lot of temptations to get into conflicts, to get into to dispute trades. And if we're looking at countries, I just want to look at this one right now, just quickly. Okay, so we have Hawaii having a Jupiter line passed through, so Hawaii actually looks fairly good. Saturn and Moon on the west coast of Canada, and that will cause some problems to that part of the world. Maybe some restrictions on trade from the government of Canada. Mercury line, there'll be a lot of news out of Northern California, and all through and all through Oregon and Washington State. So those areas will be under a microscope. Some potential for flooding in around Utah, Idaho, Montana, and let's see now, Venus line runs through there. So Venus will give some problems with criminal activity around this part of the world, but also some danger of flooding or excessive rainfall. This will also affect Texas and up through the Midwest, all the way up through Michigan. And finally, we have a Mars line running through Santo Domingo and I know there's some violence happening in the Dominican Republic right now. So this entire stretch of land over here, Argentina has problems feeding its people. Chile is having some problems with the government as well. Colombia and Venezuela are also encountering some financial hardships. And over here at Mars, there'll probably be some violence in Brazil around the time of the eclipse and a little bit after. Also down near Uruguay and Paraguay, but not as spectacularly stressed. Jupiter's passing over New England, close to where I am, and it'll pass close to Washington, D.C. So this is where all the trials are occurring. It's around New York City, right, for Trump. So but that'll tend to fall apart a little bit around April 25th, or it'll tend to get very muddy around April 25th. Let's put it that way. The other thing is, we have some lines near Maine. We have a Martian line near Maine and Newfoundland. And over here we have a Mars line running through Central. So again, some strong possibilities of some attempted overthrows of governments in Central South America. We have Saturn going up through Iceland. I don't know. There's going to be a volcano up there. It's possible. Canary Islands, Azores are also volcano centers, and I'm hoping they don't get those. But there is some indication of some poverty or some issues with money in those, or some suffering in those countries. There's a Saturn line running up through Ireland and Scotland, and that'll affect the British Isles, that'll affect France, that'll affect Spain, and also Western Africa. The other lines we have down here, we have a cluster of activity coming through Germany, Belgium, Norway, all the way down into East Africa, and there's a Rahu line and a Moon line, so there'll be scandals in Turkey, Egypt, Somalia, and I know I'm screwing up some country down here, and down through Mozambique and into Zanzibar. The other line, which again may sound weird, but there's some flooding possibilities in Venus, Iran. There's a Sun-Moon line right near Istanbul, and also near the central governments of Europe and Eastern Europe. So you're going to see a lot of economic dissatisfaction coming out of those regions. Venus line, maybe some potential for peace in Ukraine, maybe some steps in that direction. Saturn lines going right through Pakistan and Afghanistan, and also through central Russia. So you'll see some economic trouble and some governmental issues around that part of the world, and also around Iran. Actually is having a Venus line going through it right now, so actually it should have a more peaceful month, but there'll be more issues connected with women in Iran, that's for sure. There's a Mars line. So India is between a Mars and a Saturn line. So I think there have been some rumors of more repressive government activities or more restrictions on freedoms in India. I'm not a social critic. I don't know enough about Indian politics to really comment on this. But from what I've seen, it looks like they're getting very oppressive in certain parts of the country, or or limiting speech in certain parts of the country. The other thing is we have Jupiter, Saturn, Sun and Moon lines over here for China. And again, a lot of government control in China. Now, there's a lot of worry about Taiwan, and I think that's justified. So you'll see some more threatening actions taking place near Taiwan, near the Philippines, and even down by Australia and Indonesia. The other part that I'm a little concerned about is a Saturn line hitting New Zealand and a Venus line hitting through Eastern, through Eastern this is, I believe, Micronesia down here, and Australia. So when you put those all together, it sort of makes the possibility of conflict a little bit stronger, but more threats of conflict than actual conflict. The other thing is, and again, I haven't spoken about this very much. We have China is connected here through these, and I haven't made these kinds of connections before, but these same three lines are passing over, or passing close to Egypt and Europe, and a lot of these are connected with oil supply. So I think you're going to see some surprising new alliances in governments over the next year or so, and some surprising new alliances with trade. That's already been signaled in terms of China changing oil policies, and also you're going to see some scandals emerge relatively shortly from Germany about the United States, not from the United States itself. So be prepared for that. That's not. Also, Germany, just to give a balanced perspective. Germany basically is the most dominant country in the European Union. So if they want something done, it'll get done. So I think one of the things is you're going to see like power centers interacting over here and over here over the next few months, and maybe a little bit on the west coast of the United States, but those were a little bit distant away. So the United States is really dealing with over here, you have power centers which are close, But right now, the United States is kind of outside the power loop for the next few months. Um, it has a lot of internal problems it's dealing with, and I think they'll definitely still be an actor on the world stage. They're not going to be as dominant an actor just for a little while. So that's what I'm seeing from this chart. So let's go to the chart for today, and we'll look at your individual charts for that. Okay, and keeping both the new year and the um, and the eclipse chart in mind. And like I said, I plan to do a little bit more on the eclipse in a in a little while. Okay, so we're going to a now chart. I need to sorry about that, folks. And we'll make it New Bedford, Mass. All right, so um, you'd be surprised at the range of political opinion. Massachusetts is generally regarded as a liberal bastion, but there are pockets of real um, in certain parts of the state. There are pockets of really really hyper conservative people. So this is the map for right now. We have Saturn in the seventh house. So this essentially will give a lot of emphasis on sticking with predictable patterns. Sun, Rahu, Mercury is in the ninth house. Jupiter's in the eighth, so actually there can be some expected financial gains. Venus is in the 10th house, some good luck with career matters, just in general for people. And K2, and I haven't spoken about this, but again, I am expecting kind of a panic, financial panic roughly between April and June of this coming year. I hope I'm wrong, and like I said, I really hope I'm wrong about that. The good thing is you can always find a way to benefit from. If you keep a cool head, you can always find a way to benefit from other people pressing the panic button. You can always identify new opportunities for yourself to advance. So it's not necessarily the end of the world, even if it is to some people the end of the world. It's the end of one way of doing things and the beginning of a new way of doing things. And that's what New Year's are. And with Jupiter transiting from Pisces, it's going to be a switch from ideology to action. Okay, so that's what you're going to see by the end of this week. The other thing is for Aries in particular. So let's start the individual signs. I apologize it took me so long to get to this. For the individual signs, Aries has the Sun exalted in it. It will have Jupiter with Rahu and Mercury in it. So there's going to be a lot of focus on what Aries wants this month or this week, but particularly this month. So there'll be some financial gains. There'll be some luck from the government. There'll be some new ambitions, some increased money situations. But again, I think with Rahu in the first house and Saturn aspect in the first house, the money will feel very, very tenuous. It will feel very, very difficult to get exactly what you want. The other thing is with Mars in the third house, a lot of aggression towards people in general. So most of the planets are clustered between Capricorn and Gemini. Basically, all the planets are. K2 is really not a member of the planetary. It's a graha, but it's really excluded from most planetary configurations because it's really not an action maker. It's a liberating planet. So it really connects more with loss or with unexpected events than anything else. But I think one of the things you'll see over this particular chart is for Aries will have um, a strong ambition for money, a strong ambition to save, and also uh, a lot of career like, but maybe focusing on changing careers. And Saturn's in the 11th house, but slow gains. So everything Aries does over the next couple of years will have to be done slowly. That's really not the way Aries likes to operate because it's ruled by Mars, but that's really the way it has to be over the next couple of years. Some things you can speed up, but a lot of financial progress won't be one of them. For Taurus has Venus in the first house. It's what's called the Malavya Yoga. Makes this sign very interested in learning and gaining things and putting yourself in luxury. Too much spending though on home matters, and a little bit too much spending overall. I think this will be done for image purposes. It won't be, it's almost like compulsive spending for this sign. And so if you find yourself in that kind of a trap, so Taurus is more prone to this kind of behavior than a lot of the other signs are this week and this month. But Jupiter's in the 11th house. The money will certainly be there. Saturn's in the 10th. The work will certainly be there. Mars is in the second, but this sign will be very aggressive as well, and it'll be very demanding in terms of how it presents itself to other people. For K2 in the 6th house, again, watch out for dietary issues, watch out for what you eat, watch out for enemies or deceitful people, especially at work, or especially for those who work for you. For Gemini, our buddy Gemini. Gemini has Mars in the first house, good potential for gains, good potential. So there's an exchange of the first and the 11th Lord, which means that pretty much anything that Gemini wants is going to get this month, but it'll spend its money. It'll try to save money. Let me correct that. It'll try to save money, and it will try to spend it on things which will be valuable to it educationally or to it in terms of long-term investments. Saturn's in the 9th house. That will make progress or luck. So everything you study will seem very hard, but Jupiter's in the 10th house. It will be well met by people. So they'll be very happy to talk with you. They'll be very happy to work with you. And that Sun Rahu conjunction in the 11th house is actually good. But again, you'll find out some secrets about ways to make money, but also about friends that you didn't know before. Okay. The sign Cancer has the moon in the 7th house, so that puts a lot of attention in the sign on relationship partners. Also, Saturn in the 2nd house. There'll be a rush towards commitment in relationships, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I would also caution, just from personal experience, waiting to get to know the person relationship-wise before you do anything. And let's see, Mars is in the 12th house, so that's another reason to slow down, because Mars in the 12th gives what's called victimization from other people. So you'll have people who come into your life pretending they're really interested in you, but they're really wanting to use you. So again, that's not to make you paranoid. That's just to make you careful. Sun is in the 2nd house, strong desire for gain or public recognition on the sign's part. You'll receive it. It'll be fleeting, but you'll definitely receive it. And it may actually maintain itself past the initial rush between April 15th and May 15th. all the way through November, at least according to this chart. And so that will give continuous fame or continuous recognition to people, keep them quite busy. It'll keep Cancers quite busy. Ketu's in the fourth house, so there'll be some disruption or some need to leave home a lot. Saturn's in the eighth. Some legacy is provided from this combination, but it'll probably be landed assets, if anything, and it won't be worth very much. And Jupiter's in the ninth house. This is actually a good placement. It gives good knowledge, good ability to reach other people. For Leo, Leo has Saturn in the seventh house. So this sign will not be as inclined. It'll probably be a little bit disappointed in relationship partners, but it probably won't want to break off from relationship partners. It'll view a contract as a contract, and it'll agree to stay. The other thing is K2's in the third. This sign is very ambitious. It wants to have more freedom, have more independence. Moon is in the sixth house, so this can give transitory dietary problems. Jupiter's in the eighth. That's good for financial gains, especially for relationship partners. And finally, Rahu, Mercury, and Ketu. Mercury and Ketu, and then later on the Moon, around the 19th, will be in the first house, and Jupiter will be in the 10th, in the ninth house. So there'll be a lot of interaction with teachers or advisors or counselors over the next couple of months for this sign. And to be honest, you'll be confused about which action to take. Work life, though, does look good. Financial gains look good. For Virgo, Virgo has no planets in the first house. The Lord of the first is in the eighth. So this sign will seem a little bit reticent, not really willing to take chances, more eager to keep its opinion to itself, maybe feeling even like it's a little bit in prison. It can't say exactly what it wants to say. And it's because of fear of censorship or lacking popularity. It's going to be kind of closed in this, just a little bit closed in this month. Mars is in the 10th house, though, so the sign will seem active. The sign will seem very, very talkative. And Venus is in the ninth house. It's in the ninth house. That's pretty good for luck, overall luck. Moon is in the fifth house. That's good for past high credit. Even if someone's contemplating running for politics, not a bad position, or contemplating getting a new job or a new learning experience, not bad. That's a good position for that. And Jupiter's in the seventh house, so relationship partners will become rather abundant. Saturn in the sixth, as we said before, the sign does need to watch out for his health. There are a variety of short-term health problems this sign has probably had over the past couple of months, given that transit. For Libra, Libra has K2 in the first house. Now, again, we're talking about October 15th to November 15th, just so you can orient yourselves again. K2's in Libra, Rahu, Sun, and Mercury, then Moon and Jupiter will be in the seventh house. This will mark a change in relationships for this sign. So I think what this is going to mean is that there'll be a shift in the power dynamic, or some kind of frustration level being reached for Librans, and also to a certain extent for Aries. Okay, so people with planets along this axis should expect to see big shifts in power or influence over the next week. And that'll continue over the next few months. It will actually put this sign in a position of power, but not really convinced it needs to use it. Saturn aspecting the seventh house, some problems with it, and two relationship partners over the next several months. And finally, Jupiter's moon is in the fourth, a lot of focus on home and home renovation, and Jupiter's in the sixth, a lot of focus on health for the sun. So not bad placements, and as a matter of fact, enemies will be helpful this month. So that's one good pattern in this chart. For Scorpio, Scorpio has Venus in the seventh house. Again, you'll attract beautiful people into your life, good, solid business relationships. But again, there's a little bit of a danger of being taken advantage of in both business relationships and long-term relationships with spouse. So just be a little careful this month. Okay. For Moon is in the third house, is Lord of the ninth. That's a good place for ambition of learning, wanting to be like one's father or ancestors. Jupiter's in the fifth house. Children will be well behaved, basically, and also there'll be a lot of earning and learning potential from this chart over the next few weeks. Finally, we have Rahu and Sun, Rahu, Mercury, and then later on this week, Moon and Jupiter in the. I'm sorry, not this week. Next week. My apologies. So Jupiter won't be in that sign really until next week. My apologies, folks. But you will see a lot of activity in this sign in terms of health care and trying to eliminate the competition. Okay. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius has the Lord of the first in the fourth house. Moon is in the second house, and that's good for financial gains, although they're a little variable. And Saturn's in the third house, so there'll be a lot of determination, a lot of willingness to take on new projects, a lot of interest in working hard. Jupiter in the fourth house, more learning endeavors. Sun, Rahu, Mercury, then Moon in the fifth house. Next week, Jupiter in the fifth house. A lot of activity connected with past life credit, including increased creativity, good political fortunes, and also financial growth. Venus is in the sixth house. So again, watch out for too rich foods. Watch out for dietary problems connected with the kidneys. Although Venus is in its own sign, that's not necessarily bad. It'll give good servants or good, when I say servants, employees is what we would use in 21st century United States. And Mars is in the seventh house. So again, some potential for arguments with relationship partners. Again, this doesn't go away, but I never get tired of saying it. Mars is let me just see now. Mars is in the seventh house. This should give good opportunity for logical dealing with relationship partners. This isn't a bad placement, but I think you'll find that with that K2 in the 11th house, it's still too early to trust people. Venus is better placed by sign than it has been recently, but this also indicates that friends could be a little bit deceitful, maybe even try to steal from you. Capricorn has the moon in the first house. The Lord of the first house is in the second house, so there'll be a lot of focus on financial growth. Jupiter's in the third house, a lot of desire to advance financially for this sign, but not really a lot of strong taste for conflict. And Rahu, Sun, and Mercury, and then Moon, and next week, Jupiter sit in the fourth house. And I think you'll see a lot of dissatisfaction with home place. There's definitely dissatisfaction with work life because the person's just doing their job and not really being well compensated or individualized by their employers. Mars is in the sixth house. So again, watch out for stomach issues, watch out for um, flus and things like that. So don't be afraid, just watch out for them. And let's go on to Aquarius. Aquarius has a um, great personality. You'll get has um, Saturn in Aquarius in the first house. This is one of the best positions for Saturn to be in. Saturn likes Aquarius better than likes Capricorn. And with Rahu affecting that house, moving backwards towards it, it'll give a push towards innovation. It won't fructify really for about another uh, year or so, okay? But the relationship can start currently. And let me just, so Jupiter's is in the second house, so it'll be good financial gain. Aquarius will be spending a lot of money though on home life and also on fixed assets. Finally, um, let's see. Finally, we're getting into Pisces, and Pisces has Sun, Rahu, and Mercury, and shortly Moon in the second house in the chart. So there'll be a lot of focus on financial growth. Not much for not. This isn't really that spiritual month, folks. To be honest with you, so I'm not really surprised to see these configurations coming up. And you'll see Jupiter is in its own sign in the first house, so that generally gives good luck to the sign. Sun is in the next sign over, that's your opponent, um, and let me just gather my wits about me. So Pisces is very well placed for financial gains, but again, some dissatisfaction with those financial gains, obviously. And again, we do have a problem in terms of supplies and interest rates affecting the global economy. So I just want to intersperse this. There are stories about people pulling their money out of banks and causing not as big as what happened in 1921, but 1929, but making it more expensive to borrow money because they do it based on reserves. And interest rates have been high for a while now. So let's go back to the chart for Pisces. My apologies, Pisces. Venus is in the third house of Taurus. That's very good for financial gains and for financial growth. Good at negotiating contracts, good skills for being around people. The other planets you have are Mars is in the fourth house. This will be ready to fight almost all the time. Moon is in the 11th house. I'm sorry, K2 is in the 8th house, so a very research driven sign right now. And finally, um, um, we have Moon in, so I think we were saying, oh, that's right, K2 in the 8th house, so a lot of investigation, a lot of behind the scenes investigation. And Moon in the 11th house, so there'll be some financial gains for the sign, but again, it's a temptation to spend them almost as quickly as they're earned. So that's my reading for this month. That's my reading connecting with the eclipses. And let's just look and see if we have any other hot spots just quickly on the chart. See if I can get there. We have time. Yeah, this is pretty consistent with the chart I looked at earlier, although you will have some more problems in Southern California, um, as well as the rest of the state and Nevada and Wyoming and Colorado over the next few months or the next week. Um, if we're looking at, let's see now. The other thing is we do have a Rahu line passing through Argentina, which is very bad for that society. Um, Moon and Saturn. And let's see now, almost a few more minutes left to go. Only a few more minutes left to go. Mars line is avoiding large countries, which is good. Um, so that I think just about wraps it up. I'm not seeing anything radically different in this chart that I didn't see from the earlier predictions. So I'm just going to let you go now. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. I love you all, and namaste. Thanks a lot, folks. And again, don't forget to subscribe. Um, there'll be more podcast. I'm going to try to get it up to at least one long presentation per week and one shorter one sometime randomly in the week. I'll also try to do a live uh, broadcast at some point in the not too near future, so you can get online and ask me questions and say, yeah, but what about this? And try to beat the astrologer. That might be the good name of the show. Okay. All right. So that's it. Um, I'm leaving you now. Bye bye, everyone. Thanks again. Again, love you. Take good care of yourselves. Bye bye. Thanks for watching.